All right.
Always fun to dance to
Yeah,
some
we
music.
have too much fun in between our openings. Halloween is upon us. Believe it or not.
Coming
You can
up
hear
in
the
like a
screams.
week, I think.
Yeah. And I thought it would be a good time to discuss two horror movie mainstays and put them into the Thunderdome and see who comes out the victor. We're talking, of course, about zombies and vampires.
Yeah.
So-
Which world would you prefer to live in? Which one do you think makes for a more entertaining movie?
Mhm.
Which one do you prefer? But I think one of the more interesting questions is which world would you prefer to live in?
Yeah.
Both zombies and vampires would change your existence to the point where much more of your attention is placed upon just surviving.
Yeah.
Which would change, it would be a big change. I think zombies a little bit more so than vampires because vampires can't come out during the day traditionally. So your days might operate pretty similar to the way they always do.
Yeah, I feel like with vampires, you could come up with a system. It'd have to be very, very detailed on how to solve it. Like, have a room in, like, your basement or something that you could lock up, have a bunch of UV lamps, keep yourself safe. It'd have to run on a generator, so then you'd have to think of some way to get the exhaust to go out of the house or something. But I feel like once you solve all those little issues, then you're okay at night. You can go and live a totally normal life during the day.
It would help to have UV light, like spotlights on your yard or around your house would be a big help. Hang up fresh garlic from your ceiling.
Yeah.
So they
just have a garlic garden.
Things to keep them away, and you might be able to kind of just live separate lives and not have to deal with being a vampire too much. What I like about being in a vampire world is that if a vampire gets you, you have a chance of becoming a vampire. So like the downside to getting eaten by a vampire is now you're a vampire. You live forever as long as you feed on
incredibly
blood.
Strong.
Really strong, really fast. Whereas a zombie, if a zombie gets you, you're a zombie. And I don't think zombies are conscious.
Living dead.
Yeah. Although I wouldn't mind as much if it was like a dead alive, brain dead kind of zombie.
Okay.
It wouldn't be because then you kind of still have a little bit of your humanity left.
Yeah.
But you kind of slowly lose it. And the thing is with vampires, you're not necessarily going to lose your humanity, but with zombies, you definitely are.
Yeah.
But then zombies, they're not strong and fast. They can't run after you. They're pretty easy to avoid so long as you have some kind of method of transportation or you're a good runner. So there are pros and cons to both sides.
Agreed. There's a lot more zombies than there are vampires, really, in the movies it's depicted as such. So, I mean, once they kind of gather in a horde, it's a lot scarier, but vampires are, of course, faster, stronger, very, very dangerous. I'd be more scared to be confronted by a vampire than a zombie, because I feel like, okay, I can get out of this situation a little bit easier than I would against, like, 3 vampires.
Right. Zombie, I can hit it in the head really hard or run away. Vampire, you can't do either of those things. It wouldn't do anything. Yeah,
and in terms of, like, killing them, I feel like vampires may be a little bit easier because there's multiple things to destroy a vampire.
Right. Stake to the heart.
And if you're prepared for it, your odds are a little bit better. While a zombie takes exact, precise, like, you got a gun and you're like, okay, zombies, no problem. But there's a lot of them and you got to be very precise to get them in the head. So unless you've had proper weapons training or anything like that, or you don't want to get too close, so kind of melee weapons may be a little bit
more dangerous. Yeah. You're playing with fire at that point.
Yeah.
So I think I'd prefer a vampire world because you get your days separate, so you don't have to constantly be running away from an enemy. And if on the off chance that you become a vampire, that you get bit, you might just become a vampire and not totally die. So I think that both those things are good. It would be cool to be in a zombie world for some reasons. I think it would just be fun to be able to guiltlessly slaughter pretty much humans, and I think that would be fun.
Honestly, it would.
That's
if
why
you're
people
at home
like
saying that wouldn't be fun.
That's why people like zombie movies,
creativity.
really, because I mean, yes, there's like a scariness to it and an
Yeah.
exciting like thrillingness to it, but really, it's just an excuse to kill people when you're really not killing people.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why it's fun to watch those when there's like really good kills. It's like, oh,
I would track down the people that made fun of me when I was younger, and that'd be the most like.
That you would still be satisfied, but you weren't actually killing them because they're already dead.
Yeah, it'd be like the ultimate experience. You're just like, oh. Be really excited.
Track them down and follow them for a while.
Yeah, shove them to the ground and watch them slowly zombie get up.
I think it'd be interesting to study them too. I think that would be interesting just to like have a zombie and like look at it medically and maybe tie it down.
The science would be interesting.
Yeah, it'd be a lot easier than with a vampire.
Think of the National Geographic, the Planet Earth style BBC shows. Following the lives of zombies.
This is the life of the zombie. Zombie odd couples. This zombie human and zombie chimpanzee are great friends. Not often found in whatever.
Yeah, no,
that's been a popular thing nowadays. Odd couples. I also was thinking about like. With vampires, there's a chance that you could live at peace with vampires. You could find a way to like, look, I'll let you drink my blood so long as you don't kill me, and I have plenty, I have enough blood, and things like you could communicate with them and have a deal. Whereas with zombies, you couldn't do that. They're just going to try and eat your brains.
Like, how about you don't try to eat me today, and then I'll bring you some people to eat on. And they're still like attacking you. Like I'm getting nowhere.
You could chain them up and like feed them.
Yeah,
I think you could feed them dead flesh. Like in Shaun of the Dead, he does that with his zombie buddy, and they play video games.
Fido's really good.
Yeah,
it's a good one. So, who has the better movies, zombies or vampires? There's a slew of them out there. It's way oversaturated. There's a lot of crappy movies.
That's really difficult because there's really good zombie movies and there's really good vampire movies. Mm-hmm. But I would have to say, overall, as a whole, I think zombies have better movies. Zombies, some of the most like iconic ever made horror films are zombie films. Some of the first ever
Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, horror films are zombie films, and some really really good, just really funny, really fun to watch movies are zombies movies.
Yeah. I think Shaun of the Dead is probably one of the best zombie movies I've ever seen.
And right, and it's a zombie movie.
Parody.
Yeah,
but they execute it so
really well, and they use practical effects. Something that I really like about, something that you should keep in mind about zombies is there's so many different forms. I mean, with 28 days and 28 weeks later, you have these like fast zombies that are like, okay, they're chasing and then even like Firefly, Serenity, they had like a cool kind of different sort of zombie. Yeah. I mean, because the Reavers are basically zombies. Everybody, all these different things that are pretty much zombies. And it's cool to see. Yeah. There's a lot of play there. Whereas vampires, there's a lot of rules regarding how they act and the way it works. So
I feel like with vampires, though, there's not as many good vampire movies. I mean, they're out there, but I'd say probably the best one is Let the Right One In, Let Me In. Incredible movie. And I don't think a zombie movie hits you on the impact as that movie does, because you're just like, whoa, it's a different take. You gotta watch it. Watch the one that's in. I think it's Italian. And I think it's called Let Me In.
Right,
Let the Right One In.
Zombie movies are kind of more about like gore, whereas vampire movies, there are vampire movies that we could talk about on Highbrow. Really
it's a lot more in your head.
Artistic, An Interview with a Vampire is a really good one that isn't really this like slasher gore movie, but is much more acting.
I think zombie movies are a lot more like primal and physical. Say cookie. And I think vampire movies are a lot more intellectual.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think that's why like a lot of vampires, the lore has to do with like how they behave with you. Like you have to invite them in to your home and things like that. She's excited. That was a fun visit. I'm glad that she visited us
during the zombie vampire section.
So there's a lot of really good zombie TV shows, but there's good vampire TV shows too. So I mean, there's good in both camps, but I think overall the zombie movies there's just more and better ones, and then the vampires, it's more in your head.
Yeah.
I like vampires and zombies.
They're good.
I like them both.
Yeah, I mean, either way, you're going to have a moment where someone's going to die, and it's going to be really dramatic, and you usually have that cheesy scene where they say something to them motivational in their last breath. So let's pretend for a second that last thing they say in their last breath is a movie to watch, which will bring us to our transition, which will bring us to our next thing we're going to talk about. Let's say you're dying, and your loved one's holding you, and they're like, "No, you can't die. I don't know what I'm going to watch this weekend."
Exactly. It happens all the time.
All the time. It's what most, I think, doctor shows do that a lot.
We need to know what movie you're going to tell that person to watch. You got one movie to pitch.
Just one.
So, and that has to do with the technique behind my pick. Because whenever I feel like suggesting a movie to someone, there's an assumption that you make that this person hasn't seen this movie. And you don't want to waste your one last breath movie on a movie that someone's already seen or is more than likely has already seen. Okay. So I picked one that had a lot of impact on me. I think it's a really great movie, but I think a lot of people may not have seen it. Okay. For me, and this is still a work in progress, this movie could change, but I think right now, if I had to just pick one movie to suggest for people to watch, in this day and age, it would be Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Very funny, very feel-good musical. You don't see musicals like that anymore, and those kinds of movies are a lot of fun. It's a good B&B movie to sit down with friends and watch it. Lots of sexism, which is always fun when you're watching an old movie and it's just totally not PC. There's something really enjoyable about that. Like, it's not like you watch it and think less of ladies. It's almost kind of like, wow, I can't believe that they made this movie and it was okay. Like, I can't believe that nobody was in outrage. This was a movie. It's amazing. But anyhow, for all of those reasons and many more, it's just a great movie. So I think that's what I would suggest. Like, watch Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. And there's a high likelihood, I feel like, that they wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah. Huh. I didn't think of it that way. I thought of it more like, what's the one movie that I just personally love that is like, you know what, watch this movie because I want you to think of me.
Right. Like, so it's more of like, this movie is a representation of who I am.
Yeah, remember me through this film.
Which I feel like Seven Brides and Seven Brothers, I mean, I'm not sexist, but like, the kind of like high, like, you know, friendly feel-goodness of it would be, I think it would totally work. I wouldn't be surprised if my friends watched that and said it made them think of me. Yeah. So,
for me, I think I kept going back and forth between a lot of movies that I love, but they just didn't quite. It's really hard.
Right. You only get to pick one.
I'd probably tell people Airplane.
Nice.
It's a good representation of me and my humor. It's one of those ones that's funny almost every time you watch it.
It's a classic. It's a farce, which I really like farce movies a lot.
And I don't think that there will be a farce movie that's coming out in the future that's going to be on par as good as Airplane, because it was one of the first.
I think the closest thing that I've seen was still it was a long time ago. It was Wrongfully Accused. That was a good Leslie Nielsen farce movie that was, primarily making fun of Fugitive, but that wasn't that. I think that was in the 2000s. I think that was after the 2000s. I'm not sure though.
I feel like late 90s.
Maybe late 90s.
We'll check it out.
I'll have to look it up. But you don't see those types of movies nowadays.
And they're amazing. There's more jokes per second in that movie than any of them.
And
it's probably my number one favorite.
They don't make
comedy.
movies like that nowadays either, with like joke after joke after joke, and every single scene is a joke.
They try, like Epic Movie and all those, but it is the most cheap humor on the planet. I cannot stand
they don't
those
have
movies.
The skill. There's not good enough writing, and not the acting is important too. Like, you got to be able to sell that humor, but also tell a story. Yeah. And it's hard to meld those things really well.
Yeah. And there's enough of like the thing about Airplane is that you don't feel like the people acting. You feel like they're actually in that situation. You don't feel like they're in their head going, right, I'm so funny. Well, and then there's like people behind the camera like, we're so funny.
Leslie Nielsen, that's why he's such a good...
He's so straight.
Yeah, because he just, it's believable. You really believe he's that stupid or that simple or like whatever the humor is playing on.
And the little visual touches of that movie are hilarious. Like when the girl's going down the plane and she's like, is there anyone here that's a doctor? And it cuts to Leslie Nielsen and he has the stethoscope in his ears and it's hanging down. He's like, excuse me, ma'am, I'm a doctor. And it's just like...
It's like, of course you are.
It's just so classic. Yeah. Why would he have those in? It's just... so perfectly done and like serious. It's just an.
I just think the writing. What's your vector, Victor?
Yeah, what's your vector, Victor?
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley. Yeah, like those types of things are just like, oh my goodness, so funny. Yeah, and totally started there. There's another scene in that movie where it's there's these guys. The stewardess is trying to figure out what these guys want to drink, and they're like speaking in Ebonics, so she doesn't understand. Yeah, she's like, I don't speak jive, and so it's like, excuse me, man, I speak jive.
Yeah, and then the old lady comes up.
So she walks in, she's like, yo, it's so funny. I love that. So just really funny stuff. Yeah, good movie, and slapstick comedy that you don't see nowadays either. So yeah, that's a good choice. Airplane. Yeah. Thanks. I like the Naked Gun movies a lot.
Those are classic.
So, yeah.
Yeah, he does good stuff. Anyway, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.